Like that one took some time to implement, but it was still cool. Made some people scream, especially you for performance.
Hello, I'm Kunal Luthra. I'm Associate Technical Art Director on Avatar from the Ashes, and before that I was a lead technical artist on the game.
Hi everyone, my name is Eros Dadoli and I'm a lead lighting artist working on Avatar.
And today we're going to go through some of the cool technical aspects that we've been working on, and that's going to be partly VFX related, lighting related, and a little bit destruction and some fun tidbits that we're going to showcase.
Every single video that we have seen from the game was showing this tunnel and this moment in here.
That's why it was so important for us to show the polar opposite, the devastation of that.
Yeah, exactly. Like lighting wise, fire. We start to hint the fire. So it was tough, but a great moment that we wanted to encompass. So yeah, like in here we can start to see the transition of it, and we wanted to nail the effect of transitioning from an enclosed claustrophobic place to this one. That is a little bit different from the main game.
Yeah, you probably remember the nice lush green beauty of Pandora.
And now everything is crashing full. So yeah, this is also the first hint about destruction that we wanted to show, like the crumbling world of Pandora, like going completely down. Like this whole area got like bombarded by the RDA from ground up.
It's pure devastation.
Yeah.
And a little interesting part on the technical side of things, like you might remember the pollution that we had in the main game of Avatar. We basically repurposed that to encompass the ashen and burned look instead. And we also added the support to emit on the ray trace emission from the ground on the ember side, so we can actually light the fog and the characters and everything in the world properly from the ray tracing world, to help to tie the world with the lighting and what's happening with the fire and the ash or embers.
Yeah, exactly. Like that one was the first research, I would say. Like researching the fire and how to make it work with the lighting.
Exactly.
And the surrounding environment.
Grounding
especially.
it, making it work with the ray tracing that corresponds with all the content around the world.
Like the ashes adds so much, like you can see. And it's not all uniform, like here you can see it reflecting a little bit based on the wetness. It's not just a layer on top of everything.
No, we relied a lot on the volumetric fog to sort of fill the space as well, to give that dense dark smog that you build up from burnt vegetation. Really helps grounding it.
Yeah. No, yeah, it has been a conjunction of work between lighting, VFX, shaders.
And shout out to the VFX team that helped making all this come true.
Yeah. No, it has been a lot of things.
Yeah.
Burning a gigantic world, it's not an easy task, let's say.
No, it's not. And also when it comes to fire and performance in games with particles, it's always like, how do you make it efficient? You have overdraw. How do you make it not run like crap? And we did look into other approaches to have like fire volumes. And these volumes essentially are a post effect that you try to encapsulate an area that is on fire. You can look to the left there actually. You can see some of that operating together with the fire particles. There's like a sphere that looks like it's lighting things on fire inside the sphere, and this is an approach we tried out. I can go into more into detail that later on when we
see it, especially in scale, because that one was the toughest point.
Yes, like how do we have fires at long distances, and like how do we render them nicely, and the sense of speed and scale is very different on large fires.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a very interesting challenge to solve.
Yeah. No, yeah, then we're gonna also see how it is connected also with the lighting. Because in here it was really a linear cinematic moment where again we want to show the devastation and the first hints of how the world is going to look like for the player in the future. So, and we did it through all the effects and features like you said, and lighting as well.
Yes.
Plus also encompassing all the linear moments like these ones.
When you have some elements of
destruction, movement throughout the game. Like that one took some time to implement, but it was still cool. Made some people scream, especially you for performance, but still, we made it in some way.
We managed.
Yeah.
Home, LA.
One big thing From the Ashes was the cinematic approach. It's much more up close, much more personal, much more closer to the heart of how the movies were made. This also made us wanted to change how we render the characters. So we improved the facial, the eyes, like the skin shaders and the eye shaders and the hair shaders to look good up close. And you can notice that difference. And we actually patched it into the main game as well so that everybody got this update, which was great.
Yeah, all the reflections, and you can literally see the entire world inside of the eyes of the characters. Right
because
now.
This time the eyes they're fully deferred, so they reflect the world with the RT reflections, and they're subsurface scattered so that they actually absorb some light. There's a caustic detail for the iris, so you can see the reflective color. There's a lot of cool things that we added just to make the eyes pop. And you know, they have huge eyes, and they're in the camera, and you really want to see the world in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you can see all their life, all their expression, everything.
You can still see the fires all the way over there, and they're not particles.
Yeah.
The smoke over there are also not particles. They're actually a vertex shader, deferred shader we created to sort of support long distance rendering and lighting. We call them particle models. And this is an interesting approach. It works, and it gives us the leverage to render things at far distances and get the proper lighting on it as well.
Yeah.
Some of the classic particle approaches didn't work for us for these large-scale, far-distance effects, but it worked out really well, and it grounds the world. Another fun thing there, if you look down by the tree on the right side next to the fire, you can see the grass there is very lush still, and that's another technique we actually created. We called it distant grass noise. And this is really cool because we fake grass with just pixel noise in a way, screen space, scalable on the screen space, which means no matter what resolution you have on your screen, it will be uniform and native to that resolution, so that you will have like fluffy grass at every distance, wherever grass is. Yeah. One cool thing as well, the God rays, right? Because that's something we noticed on the main game. Like when we see it, it's like, wow, that's such a cool thing. And we were like, okay, how about From the Ashes, we have them all the time, or as much as possible in these weather conditions, because it's super nice to see these giant big beams of light going through and cutting through the clouds.
Then we can fly on top as well.
And you can fly through the clouds, and you can see the sunlight, and then you go through it again. It's epic.
Yeah, because another thing to add, usually in a game we say, okay, so it's 20 kilometers square, but in the case of Avatar, it's cubic scale, because you can fly on the top, and there are also things to do on the top. So we had to make sure that even like lighting-wise, we wouldn't have like clouds in the middle of those areas that you can also explore. So we have to mask them out, making sure that they can work all together in a completely 3D manner, not only the per se 2D one. So that one was also a huge challenge.
Let's dive into this world.
Yeah. I'm gonna use the Ikron code that probably not everyone knows, but cool figure. Some people recognized it.
Should we check that place first? So here we have, I also turned on God mode just to kind of showcase a little bit closer, otherwise we die pretty fast if we go into the fires. But yeah, so there's a lot of stuff happening here. We, like I said, we repurposed the pollution effects to do the fire effects, meaning instead of like rotten wood, we do more like ember inside the cracks of bark. And that's like a shader trick, all of that. And then we did a lot of the things where if I'm getting too close to the fire,
while you are burning inside.
And then you get this kind of screen effect of hazy, smoky screen effects essentially. And this is something we did through the volume effect when you enter this fire sphere post effect, which helps giving that feeling like I gotta get out of here. I can't breathe in here. Let's get out of there. I think in the nighttime you're gonna be able to see closer later when the time goes in, the actual RT emission, the ray trace emission kicking up from the ground.
Exactly. I mean, we can see some hints, and that's like we don't see it fully in the daytime, because another key point for the game was making the lighting more grounded to the world. So like in real life, whenever you have a light, like it can be a fire like these ones, in the daytime they're not going to be as much as visible as it is in the nighttime. So it sounds like pretty easy in terms of words, but then implementing it into an engine, it's another pair of hands. So it's quite tough. But still, here likely we worked so hard, especially also together with art direction, to make sure that while trying to make it grounded, we wanted to still give the feeling of fire and burning, also through lighting.
Yeah, it's pretty encompassing, and it's nice that we did it through like the pollution shader approach, because we didn't have to worry about like, oh, we have to make this specifically burnt asset custom made for this scene. Like we could just apply a volume around the area and just burn it all down, because then you can have a partially burnt tree if it touches the volume slightly, right? Because there's always a gradient, or there's always like a blend between that value, so you get this transition. Because these two trees here are actually the same tree, but this one looks burnt and this one looks still a little bit slightly burned, but also pristine in some parts. And this is really good for, we save a lot of time and memory while not having to recreate the same asset and destroy it in a different way. So yeah, there's a lot of nice tricks we can do to help sell the idea of a burned and devastated land.
Especially if you will have to refactor the entire world of Pandora, like in this case of the Kingler Forest. It wouldn't be an impossible task.
This is a good example here. You can see the bioluminescent lushness and like clean and pristine assets on one side, and on the other you notice the devastated, burnt down, destroyed ones. We can go a bit closer. And we have like volumetric fog here, as you see. This is a really good location to showcase this. I'm going to jump right off here. And you can see we have RT lighting on these bioluminescent assets on the terrain as well, that lights up from the ground up. Very similar to the movie. So you can see Solik is getting this nice green ambience light from the ground and the plants. And then on the other side, we did the same override for the fire and like ember. So there's like a glow and burnt look for this. So it feels warm and contrast from the blue. And it's a really cool way to showcase the world, because here we're standing between the border right now.
Exactly, precisely in the board, on the line.
And it's basically the same assets. We're sharing the same content. So this is the silk leaf, if I remember the name. It's more dithered, it's more burnt looking, it has embers on it, it has holes in it. And then you have a silk leaf here. It's almost touching it, so it's on the halfway. And then you get more of the pristine ones over here. These are untouched or unscathed by the fire. So it's the same asset. We just do a lot of shader modifications and material modifications to make it look more devastated.
And one thing we can add as well, especially on the non-burn one that we have changed from the main game, was how we will manage really small assets to still like emit light, because all of those ground one helps on creating the effect of having light coming through every single plant. Like in reality, those small plants, they are not emitting in the world. Otherwise, like the engine is going to be likely exploding in our faces while playing it in all of those kilometer squares of maps. So we had to find a way to use the terrain that is a distance field that has actually details for the ray tracing emission. And we, together with the biome team, created masks to have those enabling only on specific areas of the map where those smaller emissive plants were placed. It seems not like a big challenge, but again, while scaling it, it becomes to be a little bit of a managing madness of understanding all of those small
bioluminescence
areas.
was always a challenge with lighting. Because it's like artificial light, really. It's bioluminescence. It's difficult to
It's alive.
It's not a
by
source
itself.
of itself. It's
Exactly.
like it's a particles, or it's something else, like photons on a surface or something like that. Like how do you emit light responsibly from an asset like that, and how would it look? I like this part because we did a lot of the shock waves and like interactivity from explosions and gunfire. So if I'm shooting around this area, you can notice that the bioluminescence pulsates through the plant.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool.
And we did the same thing for, like, you know, when you bend, you can see the grass moves around and you shoot, and it's all just like texture buffer, simulating spring effects on the GPU, and then oscillating that, and then sending that to the vertex shaders, and then
Like for the interaction as well,
Yeah.
when you move and you...
It's the same
move
thing
them.
when you touch the plants around here and you walk through these assets. It's the same system that uses it. So it's very satisfying. I mean, people don't usually go around and shoot up Pandora, but I think it was important to make sure that there is a layer of detail that the player might not expect when they see it. They feel like, okay, there's some feedback to my action.
Exactly.
Even though it's not part of like maybe gameplay in here, but it's something that gives me so much visual feedback that I stay immersed.
Yeah.
And that to me is extremely important that we nail, right?
Home tree.
There it is. Sorry, home tree.